President Biden's legislative agenda is at a critical point. Last night, the House passed a short-term government funding bill that would also suspend the debt limit. The legislation passed along party lines with zero House Republican support. And it now heads to the Senate, where Republicans there have vowed to oppose the package. Nikole Killion joins us from Washington with the very latest. Good morning, Nikole. This legislation would both prevent a government shutdown and suspend the debt limit. But tell us what else it would include, please.
Well, it also includes funding to deal with storm relief, disaster relief from Hurricane Ida, and a host of other storms and natural disasters that have occurred over the past couple of months and within the last year. You also have additional funding that would go to assist with helping to resettle Afghans. Of course, you know, the Biden administration has mounted this massive effort to resettle the number of Afghans who were evacuated from the country last month. And so, the Biden administration did put forth a request for additional assistance to assist with their efforts in terms of dealing with those refugees. So the funding package does include those extra supplemental funds, in addition to basically, funding the government across all agencies.
But its chances in the Senate right now don't look good. Why are Republicans against it?
Well, the bottom line has to do with the fact that within this government spending bill, you also have a provision in there to suspend the debt limit through December of next year. And that is what most Republicans are opposed to doing right now. They continue to make the case that they feel that a Democrat spending is out of control, particularly when it comes to the reconciliation package. And so they don't feel that it's their responsibility in this particular moment to try to assist in, more or less, in their view, kind of giving Democrats the thumbs up to spend more by suspending the debt limit, even though Republicans have voted to increase it in the past. So because this government spending bill has that measure tucked into it, Republicans remain opposed, which means, if it gets rejected in the Senate and gets kicked back to the House, we still have to deal with this issue of funding the government, which that funding is due to run out by the end of the month. So Congress would have to figure a way to address both of those situations in short order.
We should mention, though, that the spending bill is a little bit less than it initially was proposed, because at the very last minute, Democratic leaders yanked a provision from the legislation that would have provided $1 billion for Israel's Iron Dome defense system. And this was after House progressives objected to that. So this is the latest disagreement between Democrats and between the moderates and progressives within that party. Can you explain the divide within the party and the impact of it?
Yeah, so this did throw a monkey wrench into, the spending bill at the last minute. It came kind of all of a sudden, this objection from progressives, to the point that, House leadership did decide to pull out this funding for Israel's defense system, which, in the past, Congress has funded. And it really did ruffle feathers among the Israelis. Some officials from the Israeli government had calls with House Democratic leadership, to try to get to the bottom of what was going on, what was happening. I mean, in the end, you had House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer committing to restoring this funding, perhaps even trying to introduce something as soon as this week to, again, restore it through other means. But progressives were staunchly opposed to including it in this spending package. And some of these members in particular have raised concerns about U.S. policy, the U.S.'s relationship with Israel. But, you also had pushbacks from a number of Jewish lawmakers as well to the progressives. But ultimately, the progressives won out with this measure being stripped out. But certainly it has ruffled a lot of feathers, not only, with our foreign partners, but also, among among Jewish lawmakers, also among Republicans. And so that's why you saw the leader come out and say, hey, look, we're still going to include this, just maybe through different means.
And amid all of this, with Congress back in session, a lot of us have questions about the infrastructure bill. Later today, we know President Biden is planning on meeting with Democratic leaders and lawmakers to round up support for his infrastructure plan. So where does that currently stand, Nikole?
So, look, the president really has a lot of heavy lifting to do to try to make sure his party is in lockstep on this. And we are seeing pretty much a full court press by this White House to try to get Democrats on board. You'll recall just last week, the president sat down with Senators Manchin and Sinema, some of the more moderate members of the party who have been opposed to this price tag of $3.5 trillion for this massive reconciliation package. But now you have progressives who are trying to put the stop on this bipartisan infrastructure bill, which was carefully crafted and negotiated. And, the speaker promised to vote on this by next week. But now that is kind of in limbo simply because you had the chair of the Progressive Caucus, Pramila Jayapal, come out yesterday saying that significant number of her members will not support the bipartisan infrastructure bill unless they have a guarantee that this reconciliation package is going to go forward. They obviously have doubts because of the Sinemas and Mansions of the world who have cast doubt on it. So, really the White House is now trying to do all it can to try to rally Democrats in support of this, which is why you're seeing today the president will be meeting with Democratic leadership, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, as well as other House Democrats. In addition to that, you also have a White House Communications Director, Kate Bedingfield, who will be holding a briefing with the House Democratic Caucus as well to talk about messaging, why this bill is important, how it would impact everyday Americans, hoping that they can kind of keep the party in line on this as they move forward.
Well, as you laid out, a lot of compromise, a lot of negotiations that are going to be happening before a vote next week on the infrastructure plan. That would certainly be almost a miracle if it all gets done in time. Nikole, thank you.
You bet.